Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Student Success Series. My name is Jason Pratt, Reading and Writing Specialist here at Niagara. And today I want to talk about pre-writing strategies, some things that you can think of as you're sitting down to do some research in writing. And so, although I'm talking today mostly about research papers, these tips are applicable to any kind of writing. So let's jump right into it. My first tip is to start with the 5 W's when you have a topic. Think about the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So my example topic is the industrial food system. Let's say that was something I wanted to research and write about. Well, when I sit down to write the 5 W's down, who runs it? What is it? When did it begin? Where did it begin? Where does it exist? Why is it controversial? How does it work? These kinds of questions will lead us to ideas for research because sometimes you might never have contemplated that. You might think, okay, when did it begin? Well, that's a good question. When did the industrial food system begin? Was it 10 years ago? 100 years ago? And that might lead you down a road that's really interesting. So start with the 5 W's, and the whole idea is you probably don't know the answer to most of these questions, but this will give you ideas for research. Because now when I get to the databases, instead of typing industrial food system and hitting enter and getting whatever it wants to give me, now I can have some targeted searches like who runs the industrial food system? When did the industrial food system begin? I can start to answer those questions through my research, and you never know where that's going to lead. That's sort of the fun thing about research is as you dive in and you start to find more information, it leads to more questions and more information. And you might end up somewhere you never would have thought when you started the process. So tip 1, start with the 5 W's. So once you have your 5 W's, it's a good idea to try to narrow your topic down a little bit. Those will help you. They give you some ideas because now you kind of have some thoughts of what you need to find, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. It's always a good idea to go to Google, put in your topic, and just see what comes up. Just do a quick preliminary search. You're not looking for research sources here, you're just looking for some ideas. So if I type in processed foods or industrial food system, I got a list of hundreds and hundreds of topics related to it. And so I just wrote a few down and notice some of these are kind of surprising, like cloned foods. Oh, I never would have thought of that, but that's actually one of the major controversies related to the topic. GMOs in the food supply, another one that's related to the topic but doesn't use the same language. It's not called industrial food system, but it could be a viable topic for a paper. So as you go through and you start to narrow, you might find, hey, I want to write about cloned foods. That's something I never would have thought of. And that's a benefit of this. So narrowing your topic is going to give you, each of these could be its own paper. So this is 5 different papers here. I highlighted impact of processed foods on diet and health because I'll use that on the next slide. The next step is to come up with a list of questions. So here is where you want to try to brainstorm based on that more narrowed version of your topic. What do you know about it? And you could kind of go back to the 5 W's here if you want, but you don't have to. For example, I put my highlighted topic here, my more narrowed version of the topic, the health impacts of industrial or processed food. And then I just tried to brainstorm a list of questions, and who, what, when, where, why, and how are a good place to start if you're not sure. But you can really put anything. And so my questions: how unhealthy is it? What is it? Is it safe to eat? Is it cheaper than whole foods? Does it make up a majority of the modern diet? Why do people buy them? Is there a viable alternative? I just made a list of questions. And now the next step would be to go to the databases and try to find the answers to some of these questions. Because we don't know what our thesis statement is yet. We don't have an outline for the paper yet because we're still in the information gathering phase. So what we want to do is make sure that everything that we do leads us to information that will help us write the paper. And that brings us to researching the answers. That's my next tip. So once we have our questions, we go to EBSCO or ProQuest or Google Scholar or whichever database, and we start to look for the answers to our research questions that came from our narrowed version of the topic. So for example, in this first question, how unhealthy is it? I can go to the database and I can do a search for processed food or industrial food, the word and I'll just put health. You don't want to type the whole question. You want as few words as possible because then the database will give you targeted results that are going to help you answer that question. And so as you research the answers to your questions, now every source that you're getting is going to directly apply to some part of your paper. And that's really what you want. That's going to help you do a good job on your research paper. So my next tip is to determine your approach. So you've gathered all your information. Now you have to determine how are you going to go about approaching this paper. And I've listed a few possible approaches here. This isn't every approach, but when you think about cause-effect, keep in mind that effects are things like benefits, drawbacks, dangers. So if your title of your paper is The Benefits of Industrial Food, okay, we know where that paper is going. It implies a thesis, the dangers of industrial food, totally different paper. So that's one approach. But you could also look at it as a cost-benefit analysis. Here you tell the reader what are the costs of a particular topic, what are the benefits, and then your thesis statement comes in, are there more costs or more benefits? Which outweighs the other? You could look at it as a problem solution where you approach the topic as here's a problem, here are some solutions that have been advocated, and that comes from your research, and then your thesis statement would be here is the best solution based on the research. So that's your argument. Or you could compare and contrast. This is where you might take, for example, industrial food and contrast it with organic food. Compare, contrast. How are they similar? How are they different? And then which one is more beneficial? There's a chance to weigh in with an argument. So those are all different papers. You could write 100 different papers on one topic. It just has to do with what evidence you have, what is your preference as a writer, and which one do you think best fits the topic. Okay, this leads me to my final tip, which is finding your angle. And by that I mean finding the argument that you can pursue in the paper. And there are a lot of ways you can go about doing this, but if you take the cause-effect approach, let's say we are going to use our industrial food topic that was our example, and our angle will be the benefits of the industrial food system. How does that lead to a thesis statement? Well, if your angle is the benefits of the industrial food system, maybe your thesis statement is, although there are some costs, the benefits of the industrial food system outweigh the costs. And that becomes kind of a working thesis. We can always reword that later, but we're saying, although there are some costs, the benefits outweigh the costs. Notice how that sort of outlines where this paper is going to go. After the introduction, we would expect a discussion of the costs and the benefits, and then somewhere along the line, an argument that illustrates why the benefits outweigh the costs. And so everything ties together. And so in doing that, we kind of have our paper sketched out mentally. We know where we're headed in terms of a roadmap. We need to cover all the negatives and then the positives, and then along the way explain why the negatives are outweighed by the positives. And when we're doing that, then it just becomes an issue of which of our sources do we employ in each one of those sections of the paper. And so that leads us to our outlining stage, which will be one of our future videos. But I hope this helps in terms of pre-writing, and as always, if you need additional help with pre-writing, please stop by the Academic Success Center and sign up for a Writing Center appointment. Our tutors are happy to assist with all phases of the writing process. You can also email me at jpratt@niagara.edu, and I would be happy to assist as well. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of the semester.